Hello everybody and welcome to the webinar today. My name is Mark Donkin from SuccessFlow. The webinar is going to cover flooding your pipeline with sales-ready leads. It's a pretty short one, pretty tight webinar that I've tried to pull together, focusing on some key areas. So what I want to do is just have a look at what we're going to look at today. So we're going to look at a few areas in terms of flooding pipeline with sales-ready leads. Now, I'm not going to focus on how to get leads into your database. We're going to assume that you may have been on another webinar that's going to help you in that area, but we're going to assume that you've got leads in the database. This is really about making sure you're getting those leads through as quickly as possible to the right individualized salesperson, and how you can get them, how they can be then processed really effectively to turn that into customers. So the areas we're going to look at, we're going to look at grading and scoring, which are aspects of how you're going to prioritize your leads, nurturing and lead processing in terms of taking leads in the database and nurturing them through to a status that's ready for sales to engage, and then how we're going to automate the lead assignment and process, and what kind of lead intelligence we need to give to the sales team to really allow them to do their job effectively. So we're going to pull up a poll here. Just going to look at what is your primary reason for joining the webinar today. You should see the poll come up. Okay, so you can see they're pretty well, exactly even split between the four options there. So that's great. Thanks, Samson. Okay, so the first aspect I want to look at really is scoring. I would imagine that everybody on this webinar today is familiar with scoring, but we get quite often scoring is all about scoring behavior and profile. We don't see it that way. We see that scoring should only be about behavior. So I'm going to just show you an example of what a quite a quick way to build a scoring framework. But the idea here is that we want to really identify behavioral attributes that show level of interest within your brand. So we see scoring is really good at the top of the funnel. So how interested they are in the content, your website, you know, in that brand aspect, opposed to further down the funnel where you're looking at, you know, opportunities and lead statuses and so on. Obviously, what you're going to need to do to allow you to track on behaviors, you're going to need the right technology behind that. So you're going to need ideally a marketing automation system, and that's going to need to connect to your content. So it's going to need to connect to your website. So you're going to need that cookie code, that tracking code running on there. Make sure it's applied to all pages, and then we need to then start to group that content into different areas. So it might be by product area. So then we can start to then score, well, how relevant is this to buying behavior? So no, just a general website visit might be very low, but if it's like a contact us page, that might be very high, or if they attend a webinar or download a case study. Now, what we would typically recommend doing is start with this kind of traffic light effect, where you're going to have high, medium, and low scoring. So you might have, to give you some gradients, 10, 20, 30 points, 10 low, 20 average, 30 is high buying behavior. And that way you might set your threshold at, say, 50 points, to say at 50 points we're going to take it through to the next stage in the funnel. And I'm going to show you what we would typically do there in terms of using scoring at that top of the funnel. And then if it doesn't quite work for you, you could either increase the benchmark, the level, to take it through to the next stage in the funnel, or because you've got that level of gradients, you might say, okay, well, actually, clicking on an email we're not seeing anything from that. That's, we've had 10 clicks on emails and the leads are terrible. So what we need to do is we need to really reduce that down to a 1 point maybe. So it's just a small incremental increase on the score. So if you think scoring is all about behavior, grading is all about profile. So that's really key, to split the two out. And the reason why you want to have that split out is, if you imagine, you might build up a really fantastic score. Somebody might have 1,000 points, and that might all be, 100 points, say, and that might all be based on behavior. So that's showing great behavior. Or if you're using scoring to prioritize both behavior and profile, then you're not going to have a clean separation of that, because they might have great behavior, but the profile is absolutely terrible. So what we want to do is we want to use grading, and I'm going to show you how that looks. But great in terms of profile, as long as it's in the database, information in the database, then you should be able to grade on that. And the way grading works is you would then apply a score in effect to, say, a department, job title, company size, revenue, location, industry, whatever, but that is going to then grade the lead opposed to score it. So typically from A to F grade. And that's a really, you apply the two together, and now you know how interested they are in you, the score, and how interested you are in them, the grade. And that way you can then segment that out to make sure what you're handing over to sales is both showing the right behavior, but also the right attributes as a lead that sales can actually sell into. That way sales are going to be much more confident in the quality of the leads that are coming through to them. So here's an example that Pardot, you can get on their website, but you can see there 4 different individuals with different score levels and different grades. Now, if you look at the lady in the middle there, Sarah, she's actually got a high score. She's been very, very active, but she's actually a student. So that's graded her very down. So in that case, we definitely wouldn't want to assign her. But if you only were using scoring, then in effect, she would have gone through to the next stage of the funnel because we wouldn't have been able to split that out. So, really important that we have that split so we can then look at that. Whereas if we look at Sam on the right there, Sam is high quality graded lead. He's the right title, right industry, and he's looking at really great content. So that is somebody we'd want to maybe even using, past the next stage and getting straight over to sales, because it might be a case that we're saying it's an A graded lead and it's really high behavior. There's no need to nurture it. We're going to put it straight through into the sales team to pick up. So you're going to need the right system there, and the one that we use to use that functionality would be Pardot. But other marketing automation systems may well have that kind of functionality, but we find that extremely useful function in terms of really being able to get high quality leads through from marketing into sales. So the next thing I want to look at is nurturing. So this is where we have identified a lead that wants to be nurtured. So there's quite a lot of studies that show only 25% of leads that come into your database are legitimate and should be advanced to sales. So that's where going back to that grading and scoring, fantastic. So the rest, it's not necessarily the dead, it's just that the timing might be not right, or the contact might not be right. So we need to nurture that contact so we can build that brand and identify other contacts within the organization. But it's a really good way then of not losing those 73 and qualifying them straight out, those 75%, whatever, that we want to then, we want to educate further. There might be that they're not really at the point where they want to buy. They're still at the point where they need to be convinced, or they're at the research stage. So it's a great way to establish contact immediately. Because we're going to drop them straight into a nurture path. We're not losing time. Timing is everything. So if somebody's interacting with your brand in a certain area, we can identify what each area they're interacting with, put them in the right segment, and then we can start to communicate with them immediately. We can obviously maintain consistent communications. We're looking to keep your brand front of mind and build that score up over time. If they're not ready right now, then we could build that score up over time, and that's where that score would move them on to the next stage. Grading would just automatically take them out. It might be that they're using the grading to segment out of the nurture, because obviously what we don't want to do is nurture leads that are not right. We see that quite a lot, where all the leads go into a nurture program and they do whatever, they might even click for a meeting or whatever, but sales are still not going to be happy if they're getting on the phone and the individual is not the right type of contact, not the right type of organization. So segmenting out of a nurture program is equally as important as getting them in there as quickly as possible. Obviously, we can also segment on behavior and profile in terms of personalizing that communication. So you can then split those segments down. You might have personas where you're going to then, right, we've graded them in, so we know they're the right fit. They haven't shown so much behavior we want to hand them straight over to sales. We're going to nurture them, but what we might do is we might have a few different personas where we've got different content that we then want to introduce to them. So we make that nurturing much more personal and relevant to that individual. And obviously, we're going to look at, you know, increasing that engagement with that individual, so we can see multi-touches. You know, we're not just going to see one touch, because we can guide them where we want them to go. You know, on the website, obviously the content might all be there, but you're reliant on them finding it. In this way, we can see, well, you know, did they download that? Did they go to the case study? Did they go on the white paper? Did they go on the webinar? Whatever it might be. So we can then build up, again, use Nurture to build that score up, so we can get through to the next stage in the funnel. So this is a really simple way of looking at how you can use automation through a nurture path. One of the key areas that we see more often than not is the fact that an automation platform has been purchased and there has been no consideration in terms of how it's going to be used. So what ends up happening is it ends up getting used as a email automation system. You know, so we're going to send out 3 emails, a drip feed campaign or something. But that's not really nurturing through the funnel. So it's really important to have a strategy behind this. So to get the most out of your investment in marketing automation, you can see here, so you might have, like I said, 3 segments, and that might be where we've got specific content related to each segment. But the first stage, we're dropping that person into a research nurture path. And what that one means is we identified this individual is researching your brand. And what that might be, they might be researching an issue that they have. They might be looking, you know, at new techniques, educating themselves, looking at different tactics to meet their objectives. And we want to be seen positioning our brand, hopefully a little bit like I'm doing right now, in terms of that research stage. You know, so you might use guide, you might have a video, you might have a webinar, you've got your blog. What we're looking to do there is build up score, or it might identify a click. But either the score or the click, we're going to try and drop them into the consideration stage of the funnel. That's where we're going to use proposition-led content. So you might have a demo, you might have some case studies, you might have a, you know, an ROI model that you use, and that's going to, what we want to do there is we want to see whether they're interested in our proposition, and then if they say click on one of those, that content or that action, that's going to immediately alert sales. So that's where we have that integration back into CRM, back into the sales team, and I'm going to show you that in terms of the lead intelligence. But then we might want to have specific emails produced by marketing that, you know, that sales can then use. You know, they might not have been able to get them on the phone, so you might have some, you know, chaser emails. You might have some emails that are going to help convince, you know, let's get a meeting in the diary, let's meet up for a breakfast or whatever. But those need to be part of the platform as well, so we can then track and show that engagement at that level. And obviously, at some point, that individual hopefully will become a customer, and that's where we want to move them into retention. Again, we see quite often where, you know, we've won them as a customer, that's our job done, you know, over to customer services. Well, actually, marketing is becoming not just further into the funnel, but out the funnel. You know, so we want to then use that automation. We might have an onboarding process. They might get you know, the quicker they can get that email, you know, this is what's going to happen next. Here's access to our knowledge base. Here's how you get access to our advocacy program. We want to make sure that we can, you know, not only retain that customer, but grow that customer into a very profitable customer. Now, within the database, what's equally as important, you've got that kind of view, that customer journey view, and you're looking at, you're going to use content and automation to nurture through that customer journey, the stages of that customer journey, which in effect is the funnel. But actually in the database, we need to have statuses and definitions. And what we see quite often in CRM is we've got some statuses, nobody really knows what that one means, we don't know who's responsible for it. So it's really important to have your statuses clearly identified, and you'll hear all kinds of things, MQLs, SQL, sales ready leads, SALs, you know. So this is just our take on that. So basically, as leads come in, they're at that research stage, they're at marketing ready. You know, that is where they're you know, receiving information via the automation. That is the responsibility of marketing. Now that's where that's, you know, in that journey, that's everything stays at marketing ready, even if it's at the research stage or the consideration stage. As it becomes sales ready, that's where they've shown, click the call to action or shown so much behavior at the consideration stage that we're going to move them through to sales. And now we need to make sure sales clearly understand that. what a really good idea there is to have an SLA between marketing and sales. So, sales would sign an SLA to say, this is a service level agreement. We agreed to provide leads of this quality, this criteria, this grade, whatever, but you will get automatic tasks, which I'll show you, coming into your CRM and into your lead view, but you must call them within 24 hours. You must make 3 attempts on the lead, whatever it might be. If you must put a reason why it didn't convert to the next stage, whatever the SLA might be, unless it goes to sales accepted. So the goal there is obviously get it to sales accepted, where sales have, reviewed the lead, collected the lead, they're accepting that lead, and that's the handover point. And then sales qualified, obviously they've qualified it, and there's an opportunity there to do business. Other statuses there that sales would typically use, or marketing. What we have is company qualified out. That means that's where we're grading them out. So the company or the lead has been qualified out because the profile's not right. Where sales qualified out means that sales spoke to them and it's not right. There's no opportunity there. So that's where we need to look at that scoring. So company qualified out can help you hone your grading, and sales qualified out can help you hone your scoring. And obviously, not all leads are either business or dead. It might be they're just not ready right now, and we need to put them back in the top of the funnel. So a good idea there is using a remarketing status, which allows you to reset the score, basically. The grade wouldn't reset because unless the profile changes, but the score might reset because basically we behavior, but it's worthless at this stage. We've identified that that behavior doesn't mean anything yet. So, we need to maybe get them back to 0, and then we're going to look for them to build up score again at the top of that funnel. So just to some stats here that I'll try to pull some stats from, reputable research organizations in terms of why do you need scoring, why do you need nurturing? And just a couple I'd pick out here, companies that automate leads see a 10% or greater increase in revenue over 6 to 9 months. So obviously that is going to have a big impact on the bottom line. Companies that excel at lead nurturing generate 50% more sales-ready leads at a 33% lower cost because you're obviously automating that. And and you can see on the right-hand side there, it does take, typically from Aberdeen Group, that it takes an average 10 touches before a lead is ready to progress through that funnel, to sales. So, if you can do that in an automated way, one, you're not going to miss opportunities, and two, you're going to reduce that overhead to convert that through to sales. And what sales get is going to be much higher quality. Okay, so obviously this is very, very reliant on marketing automation. So we're going to take another poll here, just in terms of what automation system you've got. Now, unfortunately, in GoToWebinar, there's only 5 options, and obviously there are way more marketing automation platforms than 5. So obviously there's a bit of a split there, but most have some other platforms. Obviously, could be anything. I mean, there's now most email systems now are purporting to do automation. I'm not sure how accurate that is because obviously the big players that have gone on the screen there have invested hundreds of millions of dollars of VC funding to build those platforms. So there is a reason why they are the market leaders. Okay, now what I wanted to touch upon here was lead assignment. So we've identified this lead is right, it's got the right grade, it's got the right score, we've nurtured it, they're showing the right behavior, we need to get it across to sales. I'm just going to pick up on a couple of things here. So in your CRM, you may have different ways of handling this, but a few ideas for you in terms of how you handle this. So you might do a round robin type thing. So leads just go round the table, basically, to the sales team. If that's how you're set up. It might be first come, first serve. So you might have a queue. The leads might go into a queue, and then it's, who's the most hungry in terms of picking that lead up and processing it. Quite a good one that we like is snooze you lose. So we see, though, going back to the SLA, it might be in that SLA that you say, okay, if you don't process that lead within 24 hours, we're going to set up a rule that will then reallocate that lead to somebody else. So if you haven't moved it from sales ready within 24 hours, and it's going to move, that's going to, sales hate losing leads. They'd hate to have one in their inbox that then somebody else got. So creating that bit of competition. And obviously field type. So it might be, geography, industry. You know, you might have your sales team territories built out that way, so they automatically would go into the right assigned. But you know, setting up those automatic assignment rules is again going to reduce that overhead in terms of how you, and the speed. The velocity is so important from marketing to sales. That marketing to sales alignment to make sure nothing is lost and it happens as quickly as possible. Obviously, you could also do it by, you know, customer segment or persona, you know, and that, again, that would be, you know, you're more segmented down on the behavior. So what they're showing interest in. So it might be you have a product sales specialist. So this individual has been, you know, they've been showing a lot of interest in this particular area. Hence, we're going to send it over to that individual because that's the area that seems to be the area of interest or buying behavior. Really important, I think. One is to ensure that sales are using tasks, because they're not always, you know, using tasks within CRM, but tasks are really essential actually to manage your time, you know, making your callbacks, your appointments. So it really helps prioritize time. But what we want to, you know, as those leads come in, we can make sure that, you know, that what goes at the top of the task list are the best leads, or the most, you know, the ones that need actioning as quickly as possible. You know, so you can see there, quite a nice way of doing that is for the automation to set the lead as a hot new lead, you know, so sales see that coming in, ping, hot new lead, you know, I'm going to prioritize that one and automate the tasks. You know, you don't want to manually do that. You want to, like you said, you've got that round robin, good automation system would be able to automate that task and put in the task subject. What are this person interested in? Why is it a lead? You know, the more information you can give on that row to the salesperson, this is a lead because of this, so they're going to go and take it further. They want to find out more. Obviously, not all salespeople are generally not sat at their desk all the time. They might be out on the road, and if they're out, we want to make sure that we're able to get that over to them anywhere. So, you know, if you're on Salesforce, then you might want to look at Salesforce One if you haven't already. Fantastic way to, it's a free app that comes with that, but you know, obviously those leads would be coming in there as tasks, and they could get those instantly as alerts on their phone. Click that, you know, phone number, dial that they're straight into that. So, you know, that engagement from anywhere. Finally, this is an interface that we use is on this lead intelligence. So visualization for the sales team, you know, they come in the morning, they sit down. This is real time leads coming in that change. So this is showing, you know, different, these are all my new leads and contacts. These are all my identified companies. So this might be a list of companies that have been on the website or downloaded content. And then, you know, you're going to be able to go into those, and you can see that the layers represent the number of actions that they've taken. So we can then, you know, we can, as a salesperson, go in and look at that history. You know, oh right, they've you know, they downloaded this white paper, they've been on this webinar, they went on that case study. Right, I feel really confident about, you know, I'm going to pick up that phone and I've got all the ammo I need to have a really good conversation, a valuable conversation. You know, where we're both coming at it. I'm not fumbling around trying to figure out, you know, is there a need? You know, is this the right individual? What are they interested in? I've got a, you know, can go in there on a confident footing. So something like that kind of you know, real time visualized interface is really, really powerful in terms of how you align between marketing and sales. So, as I said, it was quite a short one, so hopefully it gives you a few ideas there. It would be great if you could, you know, connect with us. Please do so. You can connect with me. My name's Mark Donkin. You can find me on LinkedIn. You know, go and follow us on LinkedIn. We share all of the content, and hopefully you've all enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next year. Thanks a lot.